Good morning, Wind Chasers. Welcome to another episode of Chasing the Wind with Pastor Mark. And let's just see what the Holy Spirit is doing today. So I noticed that I saw something in the news that was different from all the other stuff I'm seeing in the news. I am a big fan of big band music. Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, Frank Sinatra, all that stuff. And this morning, I was on one of my news sites that I watch, or read, and I saw something that was it just was a sad moment for me. And that was that at 103 years old, Vera Lynn passed away on June 18th. Now you say, Vera Lynn, who's that? If I was in England right now and I said Vera Lynn, almost everybody would probably know who I'm talking about. Here in the United States, we don't know it as well, but Vera Lynn was a voice of encouragement and hope during World War II, specifically in England. And Vera Lynn sang a couple songs that are well known. You can YouTube them, you can Spotify them, whatever you want to do with them, and you'll see them come up. I have them on one of my playlists on my Spotify. Two of the songs that she was well known for was "We'll Meet Again," and the other one was "The White Cliffs of Dover." And Vera Lynn was a voice of encouragement and hope to the people of England, and particularly to the soldiers in England, the sailors, the soldiers, the airmen, in the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy and that sort of thing, during the time of World War II, when the Blitz was going on in England, and it was looking very bleak for them. That Vera Lynn's music kept many a soldier encouraged during that time. And so seeing that was it was just kind of a melancholy moment of just, wow, this lady had such an impact. And yet here was the interesting thing, and I was just talking to a friend of mine about this, and so this kind of feeds into it a little bit, is we always want that big, huge impact. But the interesting thing is, I wonder how many individuals Vera Lynn actually touched. Certainly individuals, they would all say, oh yeah, her songs and made a huge impact. But how many of those people did she actually know or talk to? I remember one time someone told me about a pastor who had 200 relationships that he was maintaining. And I'm thinking, 200, how can you manage? That's why, I see people that they have 3,000 or 4,000 friends on Facebook. Like, really? How many of those people do you actually know and have contact with? Probably very, very few. It doesn't mean you're not making an impact in their life or they're having an impact in yours. But this friend of mine and I were talking a little bit about Jesus and how he would preach to multitudes, but it was only a few, and he touched those lives without a doubt. But then there was those lives that he had intimacy with. Jesus had his group of 12. Of his group of 12, he had 3, and probably of those 3, he was probably closer to Peter more than the others, which is really interesting. Maybe he knew what Vito Corleone knew. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I don't know. Maybe he should have kept Judas a little closer than Peter. I don't know. Peter wasn't his enemy. Peter just had a moment. Isn't it interesting, the moments we have? No, there's something. I love a quote from the movie The Emperor's Club. The worth of a life is not determined by a single failure nor a solitary success. But oh, we sure make it that way, especially today, don't we? You make one little flub up, and you're just a bad person. I don't know about you. I've made some bad decisions in my life. Even following Christ, I've made some bad decisions and got off track a little bit. Doesn't define me. I grew from it. I overcame it through the help of the Holy Spirit, through God's help, and grew from it and learned from it. And hopefully I'm a better person for it, having gone through it. I didn't like going through it, for sure. I was thinking about this Vera Lynn, and the time in which she made her greatest impact was the time that England was going through maybe its darkest time. When Churchill was saying keep calm and carry on, that was the phrase, the slogan. Now we just use that and use it for everything. Keep calm and camp on, or whatever you need to do. Keep calm and chase the wind on. Okay, however we need to do that. I should get shirts made up with say that. Anyway, she sang and made her greatest impact during the time that was the most dark in England's history, at least at this point. Made me think about something I recently read through the book of Acts, through the letter, Jude's letter. Okay, and I hit Revelation. I'm like, well, that's next after Jude. I should just read it. And I'm like, oh, do I really want to read Revelation? And the Lord's kind of checked me in the last few days, last week, I guess. Read Revelation. Now, I'm not a dispensationalist. I don't get into that. I'm not a premillennialist. I got a friend of mine. He's always giving me a hard time because I'm not premillennialist. I'm not post. I'm pan. When Jesus comes, he'll pan it all out, okay? Church of Nazarene, of which I'm a part, we don't take a position because we understand that there's a lot of ambiguity there. And the premillennialists can argue premillennialism, post can argue post, and okay. Here's what the Church of Nazarene really emphasized: be ready, no matter what. Just be ready. And I think those other people would argue the same thing in the end. And so I started reading Revelation again. And I took a class on it when I was in seminary number 1. And it was actually seminary 1.5. It was my D-Min equivalency that I was working on, so I could work on my MDiv equivalency, so I could work on my D-Min, I should say. And I remember taking this class on Revelation. It was a great class. It was a great class. But I pulled out some of those books again. I started reading through them again. And here's the thing. Revelation is so misinterpreted so many times. But here's what I know, and I am inclined to believe, is that Revelation was written to a specific group of people who were going through a particularly difficult time. And the whole point of it was to encourage them in the midst of their suffering, that their suffering was not in vain, that it had a purpose, that the hard times they were going through were not in vain, but they had a purpose, and that they could find hope in the midst of all that. I'm going to suggest to you this morning, Wind Chasers, that we've been going through quite a time. I think we've been going through quite a time for quite a long time. I was thinking to myself, we're coming up, I believe it's about this January will be about 20 years since 9/11. A whole generation has come about that has no clue. They don't remember it. I can still remember where I was when I heard the planes had gone into the Twin Towers. I think we've been going through a time for a long time. It's just now that it's culminated, and we're feeling a little bit heavier. It was interesting. The other day I went out to one of our local retail stores that hadn't been open in 3 months, and it opened, and it was funny. As I drove by, there was a line from in front of that store down to about in front of 3. There was in a strip mall. It was down about 4 or 5 stores. It was probably, I don't know how far it was. A couple blocks is what it seemed like. Oh, we got to get back in there and get all the something. We got to shop. I haven't shopped in 3 months. I wonder if it scratched an itch, made them feel a little bit better. Because here's what I think we really need. If there's anything we've been missing, it's been human contact. But I think it's all. My church opened at 25% this last week. It was less than that, but it was cool. We were together, and it was good to see people. It was good to preach to people, live people in front of me. And I was thinking about Vera Lynn and the impact she made on a group of people just because she used what God had blessed her with, which was her voice. And I wonder for us today, folks, as we're still going through this, and now it's not just a pandemic, it's all the rioting and looting and protesting and And it seems like the 2020 you would think is a clear vision. It's supposed to be perfect vision. I feel like we have lost sight of everything. And I will tell you that's really kind of what the book of Revelation does. I don't think it's anything supposed to scare us. I think the people who read Revelation or heard Revelation, they knew exactly what it was about, and they knew that it was to encourage them. So I'm not going to try and scare you anything today, although it could happen. I want you to be encouraged. I want you to be encouraged in these days that in the midst of it, any suffering that we're going through, whether you've lost your job, you've lost your business, maybe you've lost loved ones, maybe you're just scared today. Maybe here's what's coming to my mind. It isn't about listening to Vera Lynn sing The White Cliffs of Dover. The line is, there'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover. Just you wait and see. Things will get better. Okay? Here's the deal. Jesus is walking with us through all this thing. If we'll be aware of it, if we'll open our eyes and say, wow, God's here. He's got this. In this storm, Jesus is in the boat. We can go to him, we can cry out to him, and he'll help us. He'll help us through it. But here's the song I think that we really need to hear. I think it's from Zechariah 3:17 that we read, and I'm paraphrasing here, that God sings over us and he dances over us. He doesn't dance on us, he dances over. He is rejoicing in who we are. And he loves us tremendously. We are his treasured possession. I just preached on that last week. We're his treasured possession. He loves us very, very much. The people of England were encouraged. The soldiers in England were encouraged by the music of one lady who sang songs to encourage them. May we sing the song of the Father to people and encourage them. May you be encouraged today that in all that's going on, God is there for you. He's very, very much there for you. And he is singing songs of grace and mercy and love and hope for us to hear if we will tune in to what he said. Here's the interesting thing. Vera Lynn could have recorded all those music, but until they turned it on, they turned on the radio, the wireless, as they would say, so they could see her, hear her, whatever the case was. You won't hear it if you're not tuned in and you don't turn it on. Maybe read the book of Revelation and read it as a book of hope. Because here, let me give you a little clue. If you're a follower of Christ, that book tells you that we win. We win. We come out of this victorious because Christ is victorious. And if we're with him, if we put our hand in his, and we just don't make this little, oh yeah, I went to church the other day, but if we truly decide we're going to follow him, we're going to be his followers. An early church motto was, be what you are. It's the vision we've adopted for our church, is to be what you are. And that was a motto to the church. And what it meant was, if you say you're followers of Christ, then be that. Be followers of Christ. It's been a challenge to me, and I think it's a challenge that all of us need to take up. Is that if we say we're children of the King, then we need to be that, and we need to act it out. And so let me just encourage you today that God is able to handle all this stuff, and he is handling it. Sometimes I get a little impatient with him. God, I don't understand why you're not just coming in here and straightening all this out, setting people in the corner, whatever needs to happen to get us acting the way we need to be acting. But he's not going to force himself on us. He's not going to force himself on us. He's there. Let me suggest to you that we need to turn to God right now. we need to turn to God because He's singing beautiful music over us and He's dancing over us today. And He said, come on, find your place with me. And it's a beautiful thing. So wind chasers, that's where the wind is blowing in my life right now. So let me encourage you today. May this Chasing the Wind episode be a song today of hope and of encouragement, that whatever you're going through, whatever we're all going through, that God is not unaware. He's not taken by surprise. He's very much for us and loves us. So wind chasers, keep chasing the wind, because indeed the wind is chasing you. Until next time, I'm Pastor Mark. Grace and peace.